My connection to the Twin Towers started with this building. It's one of the classroom buildings where I went to college for 4 years. It's where I did all my piano instruction. I took a bunch of musicology classes. The uncanny resemblance to the Twin Towers is not coincidental. This building was designed by Minoru Yamasaki, who of course later went on to design two of the most famous buildings in the world. And it's stated on the college website that Yamasaki mimicked the design of this building when he designed the Twin Towers, and there really is no denying the resemblance. I don't remember it being like a point of pride, at least not by my reckoning that I can remember. It's just more of a piece of trivia that we were in the building designed by the same guy who would later design the World Trade Center. I think even in college, I was aware of the fact that the Twin Towers were not universally loved or admired. So it's not like we were in the building designed by the same guy who did the Eiffel Tower or something like that. Nevertheless, I thought it was interesting enough that when I landed in New York, I kept this little thought in the back of my mind that I should go down, see the towers up close, just to see if the resemblance is really there. So that's what I did, and sure enough, they looked a lot like this classroom, but on steroids. You know, who needs 3 floors when you can have 220 of them? And these pictures are all off the college website, so I guess I'm free to use these. But anyway, I wasn't going to do this, but I figured I'd share my account of that day. And start with that day and then circle back to the happier stuff. I would have stepped out of the Herald Square, 34th Street subway station at 8:45 a.m. I was always on time, and I would step out at 8:45 to be at work by 9 over on 9th Avenue. I worked at CNN. I did see a very low-flying jet pass by, and I heard the whirring of the engine. It may have even cast a shadow. It was a very strange-looking thing, but in the moment I didn't really think it was that low, but I do remember thinking that's a low-flying plane. But I didn't think a lot of it until about 10, 15 minutes later when I got to the office. And all the TVs were already on, and they were showing this plane that had just passed me over, had smashed into the tower. I didn't put that together. I didn't see this on the TV and think, wow, is that the plane that I just saw fly over my head? I didn't connect these at the moment. It was really like weeks and months later when I had the stomach to dig in and read up on all the details, all the gory details of what happened that day. That's when I realized that 8:46, that plane, I remember now, that American Flight 11 flew right over my head. But when I got up to the office, like everybody else there, we kind of shrugged it off. I mean, we worked in a newsroom, we covered big things all the time, but this just looked like an accident. And nobody was really concerned, but the second plane struck and there was some gasps. And the instant the second plane struck, you'd hear people say, okay, that's not an accident. Something's happening here. And I hadn't worked there at this location very long. I didn't know a lot of the people yet. But I walked around the newsroom some and was just making sustained eye contact with a bunch of these, people that I was still just getting to know a little bit. And we were all looking at each other like, what the hell is happening? Should we be worried? So when I realized what was going on, I called my mother, And I asked her if she had the TV on. She was just waking up. I asked her if she had the TV on. And she said no, and I said, turn on the TV. I don't know how to explain what's going on right now. I told her we're being attacked. And I still can't believe I ever said that, but it's true. And she turned on and she watched for a few seconds and she came back to the phone. And all she could say was, well, this is no big deal. I mean, this is nothing compared to the bombing of London in World War II, man. I mean, and in the big picture, maybe she had a point, but in the moment, it didn't really seem like an appropriate response. But whatever the case, I just wanted her to know that I was okay. And we didn't talk for very long. That's when I snuck into, I believe it was called the machine room. It was this place, I wasn't supposed to be in there, but in fact, I think the door was supposed to be locked. But this room had a straight view to the towers where I got these pictures. Obviously, I didn't get there until after the first one went down. And I was surprised to find, as I dug through these old files, I was surprised to find that I also got a little bit of video. So here's that. This was using a Coolpix 990, a Nikon Coolpix 990, which was not exactly state-of-the-art in the day, but it's all I had handy. So I went downstairs expecting to find chaos in the streets, but it was all pretty calm. Truth be told, there wasn't a whole lot for us to do there at CNN. The web server was just being slammed, and we were barely able to post content. And I worked on the finance side anyway, so I wasn't involved in the breaking world news or national news. And I felt kind of like I should be doing something, but there wasn't anything that I could do. At some point, a whole bunch of dudes showed up, tech guys and this is where I learned that CNN had offices at the World Trade Center. And in fact, our intranet server was hosted down there. But and there was a team of tech guys that worked in those buildings, in one of those buildings. And they managed to get out, and they reported uptown to our location, 34th Street. They were obviously shaken as hell. And then I guess we went home early, and that was the first time I ever walked all the way back. That's the first time I'd walked over a bridge. The first time I walked, I guess that's probably about 7 or 8 miles. I don't remember how direct a route I took. But this is the first time I walked over the Queensboro. And I knew you could walk over the bridges. I just never thought to do it. And I got a whole bunch of shots like this. I think it was about 1 p.m. when I got a call from overseas. It was an ex-girlfriend who was traveling. And I was really not happy to hear from her because we were recently exed. But I wasn't going to hang up on her. And she was crying because she had just woken up I forget where in the world she was, but wherever she was getting up about 1 p.m. our time. So she turned on the TV, and whatever she saw made her think that New York had been nuked. She thought the whole city had just been destroyed. And in the moment, hey, I didn't know if that was the next shoe that was going to drop, right? But I assured her I was fine, and everybody around me was, as far as I could tell. In time, I became friends with a number of people who were in those buildings or right around them. Many people had pretty harrowing stories to tell about escaping or getting away or running away or being ordered to run for your life. The one story that has stayed with me, though, was a woman I knew was living on Gold Street at the time, and that's basically right across the street from the Trade Center. And she did hear this terrific thud. It woke her up. She was just waking up, and she saw some smoke coming out of one of the towers, and she just figured there'd been an explosion in the building. And this was like, she must have seen that just moments after impact. It was like before the smoke and fire really spread, or visibly at least. So she went about her waking up routine, and after I don't know how long, she started hearing voices screaming, like a lot of them. But she just figured, like, she just didn't think this was going to be a big deal. She thought it was an explosion in the building. So she went to take her bubble bath, shut the door behind her, and when she came back out, she didn't hear anybody screaming anymore, and the building was gone. So on the night of September 16th, the Sunday after, I went down to Canal Street to stay the night at a hotel with a couple of CNN.com reporters and a photographer, and I ended up being a photographer myself. But we were going down there to cover the reopening of the New York Stock Exchange on Monday, the 17th. So we got there the night before. My stated purpose for being down there was that I was going to be the technical guy who would facilitate sending photos wirelessly right from the scene to the CNN newsroom. And I think I had some success with that, but it was just a huge pain in the ass because the signals were all weak and there was too much network activity and all that. But I ended up just taking a whole bunch of photos. Some of these actually got used on the CNN.com website, and if I knew where to look for it, I could find my photo credits from back then. I did dig those up once some years ago, and they were still there. So I guess they're probably still there now. But you talk about feeling like you were in a war zone. I mean, I guess that's what this was, at least in a manner of speaking. I didn't actually get into the New York Stock Exchange because I didn't have proper credentials, but I did get pretty close to the building and close to the security checkpoints and all that. And then I followed the reporters around as they interviewed some, Joe Q. Public type people. I don't remember what any of these interviews resulted in terms of what made it onto the website or what might have made it onto TV. But I remember people in the newsroom were warning me not to go down there. They said it was dangerous. I said I didn't care. I had to do something. Up until this, I just felt like powerless. It was definitely a memorable experience. We stampeded down there like commandos. So I'd been down to Ground Zero on Monday, the 17th. I think it was the next day, Tuesday, the 18th. I went to my P.O. box, my 181, and I found this. That's the name of my grade school. And it was a handwritten letter dated September 13th from the nuns at the grade school, and they just wanted to reach out and let me know they were thinking about us in New York. And I don't consider myself religious, but when she said, feel God's loving presence, that really did resonate with me. The last time I saw the towers up close was just a week before, on Labor Day. I took no photos of them. I don't know if that's just a signal of how we take some things for granted, but whatever the case, the closest I got to getting a picture of them was getting this woman on rollerblades. She's taking a picture of them. So I'm taking a picture of somebody taking a picture of the towers. So that's a little bit meta for you, isn't it? But I remember going back to work on Tuesday after Labor Day, and I was talking to a friend, and his office actually had a window facing downtown. He had a straight view of the Twin Towers. And so we were talking about that. I said, he asked what I did for Labor Day. I said, I went down to the Twin Towers, and we were talking about how awesome they were and everything. Then we started talking about the first attack, the 1993 attack. And I forget which of us said it, but we were looking at each other and we were like, can you believe that they actually wanted to destroy the towers? That was actually their goal in the 1993 attacks. And that's true. That was what they plotted to do, and they damn near did it. These guys, Al-Qaeda, didn't even intend to destroy the towers. They didn't think it was possible, or they didn't think that their flying planes into the buildings would do it. They were stunned. Which makes me, reminds me that had they stayed standing, I think New York and the whole world would have just shrugged the whole thing off. It would be in a very different world today. And I hate to give Donald Trump respect or credit for anything, but he was the first one to come out just within a few days. He was the first one who had the balls to come out and say, those buildings should not have come down. And it took a year or more, I don't know how long, for the official investigation into this thing to conclude that, he was right. Those buildings should not have come down. Oh, and by the way, when I was down there that Labor Day, there was some kind of event going on in the area. And when there was big events like this, Verizon would bring out these funny-looking special events trucks with with payphones on the side. I don't think I've ever seen one of these again, but I read up on this later, and the city keeps these in storage somewhere. At least that used to be the rule. They keep a bunch of these in storage somewhere for disasters. So I got to ask if they didn't roll these things out again after 9/11, or on that day or during that week. But I've never seen one of these in person again. That's my father. He visited New York one time, and we took a ride on the Circle Line, which a lot of New Yorkers think is corny, but it's what you do when your parents are in town, or one of them at least. And I got this picture of him with the Twin Towers off in the back. And when everything that happened, he asked me to print out photo quality prints of this picture and some of the other ones I got from that boat ride that day. And that's what I did. And he got them framed, and he hung them on his garage wall. And they were there until the day he died. But getting back to my mother, she never really changed her tune about thinking this wasn't that big a deal, and she got sick of hearing about it almost from the get-go. I think everybody got sick of hearing about it at some point, but she was first. She suggested, and this seems inevitable, if you knew my mother, she said, so I guess you're going to be leaving New York now and coming back home, right? And I said, no way. No way. I love New York more than ever. And, I don't think she ever forgave me for that. And I got pictures of the Towers of Light, I think, almost every single year since they started it, but this was the year I did it from the roof of this apartment building. I wanted to try for a different angle, a different different point of view on those things. The person who developed it, or at least one of the people involved, went to the same college as me. I never knew him, but I saw him in some interviews, and he seemed sincere and genuine, and he was talking about the the healing power of light. But like a lot of people, I did start to think they were getting monotonous every year. But then there was this one year where there was just low cloud cover, and the clouds were just like sailing through really fast. And the way the light was dancing in between the clouds and intertwining itself was really something beautiful. And I said something about it on one of my message boards, and somebody responded. He's like, I was as cynical about that shit as you were, dude, but that was a beautiful, beautiful night. Okay, so just to wrap this up, I wasn't going to do this. I think I said that earlier. I didn't want to do another trip down memory lane to a time most of us would rather forget. But, I've met a number of people over the last several years, mostly younger people, who really do want to hear this stuff. They really want to hear one person's account of that memorable day. And in that spirit, I guess I'm happy to do this if it interests anybody. I also remember when I was in the following summer, 2002, I did a road trip through Nebraska and the Dakotas. I just remember every town I went to, people asked me where I was from, and I'd say New York, and I expected people to give me the big city blowback because not everybody likes New Yorkers in all parts of the country. Didn't get that at all. Every single person I told I was from New York, the first question was, where were you that day? What's your story? And I didn't tell this whole presentation that I did, but I was happy to talk about it. And I tell you what, we've all seen the coverage and like that. I don't watch it. I stay away from television this time of year. I stay away from television anyway, but I stay far away from the media this time of year because I don't need to see that plane just flopping into the first tower. It's like, it still feels like a sucker punch. But if you can find it, you should find the Howard Stern radio show from that day. That was the eeriest, most real coverage of what was happening that day, because they were allowed to talk about stuff that the networks were not. They pinned this on Al-Qaeda and bin Laden before the networks were allowed to say all that stuff. But more than that, there was this one really ghastly moment that everybody in the studio just screamed in horror when one of the towers collapsed. Or at least that's how I remember it. I went looking around for this, and for whatever reason, it seems like if you can find that 9/11 Howard Stern broadcast at all, it's that portion seems to be excised out for some reason. I don't know if that's deliberate or what, but if you can find it, it might be worth hearing just because it was unique. So anyway, these photos are not chosen in any particular order or based on merit, but these are from the months after, when the artwork and the tributes started showing up. And also I went down there to Ground Zero about 6 months after 9/11 in March. Some of these pictures are from that. And I still remember I'll never forget actually, stepping out of the subway and looking up into the empty space where those buildings used to be. And I just thought, it's like I'm looking at two giant holes in the sky. Just holes in the sky.